there, this is H. Victoria Hargro Atkerson. I'm an author and a writer and the soon-to-be publisher. I will be publishing my own books from here on out. And it's a very exciting thing to have happen and to do for myself and for others, hopefully, who would like to get published and don't have the opportunity to do that, okay? I want to talk to you today about a topic that came up on my page, The Elder Speaks on Facebook. It's a nice place to share our experiences as elders in the Black community. We have a responsibility to pass on information to our younger people, and this is a place where we can do that. So we have young and old people, and I noticed some of the people are young as 20. Even my great-granddaughter is tuning in, and it's great. It's a great forum to talk about us and talk about what we have and what we can share with our young people. Anyway, one of our participants, Larry Jones, posted a notice about Marcus Garvey, one of my favorite heroes in Black history. And we have a really love-hate relationship with this character in the Black community, and I wanted to speak to that today. In the article that appeared on The Elder Speaks, Marcus Garvey is saying how disappointed he was that our Black people did not stand together and support him when he got in trouble. That all the time that he was building our community up and helping us to develop businesses, things of that sort, we were working undercover to bring him down. And he was correct. Now, we know that is still going on, that people who attain prominence in our community, especially Black men, they're either killed early or killed, which thanks Larry also for putting those pictures of the 30 fallen heroes from our community, Black men and young boys who were gunned down or beaten in our society today. So we are not that far from what Marcus Garvey was talking about. This type of abuse is still happening, and we have to be aware of that. So I want to go on to our comments, because I find that reading some of the comments, people don't really know who Marcus Garvey was. And like I said, he's one of my heroes because he was an entrepreneur. He was also a motivator, and he was also a businessman, and he was a newspaper reporter. He was an orator, and his organization was able to purchase 3 merchant ships, 3 huge cruise ships that not only took people, Black people, around the world, it also engaged in trades with the different countries that they visited. And one of the reasons he said he got into this because he traveled on ships before and had to suffer in the worst of circumstances. And he knew that our people deserved better. So he purchased 3 ships. And like that first one he purchased, it was a Black ship's captain, which I think is absolutely fabulous, staffed it with Black people. You don't hear about that. We don't talk about this to our children in our Black schools and our Black communities. This is a humongous man, humongous personality. And I heard a lot of comments about throughout history about the type of man he was. He was not only self-motivated, self-taught, self-educated, that he had an attitude, he believed that only he knew what was best for the Black people. He was self-centered and power-hungry, all of that. Well, I say I could put up with a little any and all of that because for one reason, he helped to open hundreds and hundreds of businesses for Black people in the Black community. He employed thousands of Black people. He had an organization that supported our culture, our traditions, and our history. This is something that he brought with him when he came to this country. Many of you may know that Marcus Garvey was born in Jamaica, and he came here in his the early 20s, but his father was a slave. His mother was a domestic. My mother was too. That's one of the things that we were expected to do during those times. And one of the things I thought was interesting about his father, and they have the story about how his father was a grave digger at some point, and of his life. I think it was after slavery that he was a grave digger, and he put Marcus in this hole and left him there to struggle on his own. And Marcus Garvey said then that he knew he would always have to depend on himself. So considering that history, I can I can understand some of the behaviors that he had. But what I want to bring out today is that this man, when he left Jamaica, before he left Jamaica, as a young child, he was a reader. He studied the dictionary. He knew words that no one else knew, and he prided himself in his ability to get that education for himself and to know more than the next person. So that's something that that was instilled in him by his mother, and I cherish this woman because she fed that young man the dream that he could be anything he chose. The power of a mother, the power of a parent, a father. This is when you give our children positive feedback. This is what we get: a humongous person, a humongous personality, and a person with great confidence and no fear, because it takes that type of attitude and that type of courage to do what he did. He was a force to be dealt with, and America did, and I'll talk about that a little later. But before coming to America, Marcus Garvey traveled all around the Caribbean and Latin America, Central America. He did a lot of traveling to see for himself the condition of the black man in the New World. And of course, greatly was he disappointed because of what he saw. And he arrived in Harlem, very enthusiastic about being able to talk to his people. He was a printer by trade, and he opened up his own printing shop, and he published one of the most widely read newspapers of his time, and it was circulated everywhere. There were places in Africa that did not allow that newspaper to be printed, and the people were forbidden to read it. It was that impactful because one of the messages in his paper, which was called The Black World, one of the messages in that paper was that Africans need to get the white man off the continent. So the Europeans were upset and fearful of this man because he was feeding this courage and this encouragement, inspiring them to do better than they had ever done before. And the first step, he said, was to get rid of that white man on your continent, okay? And that was being widely spread all over Africa. So those Europeans, together with our government, were responsible for the fall of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, like I said, he started many businesses. He employed thousands of people, and he inspired greatness. He had men's group. Men would dress up in gorgeous uniforms to show how magnificent their body structure was, show how present they could be once they took possession of their pride and their honor. This guy was amazing. Black women were held in the highest esteem because one of the things he impressed upon all black women, that we are gorgeous, that we are the top of anyone's scale when it comes to looks and beauty and strength and confidence. our children, he did the same thing. And he was always having parades in Harlem. And the purpose of those parades was to teach our people black culture, black pride, black dignity. So this was a mountain of a man that white America hated because he accomplished so much. The businesses that he built and employed thousands of people, the speeches he gave, because he's one of the best orators of the time. He didn't start out that way. I think his first speech with A. Philip Randolph, I believe. I can't remember. Anyway, that speech failed. They say he could not speak, and I can understand that anyone would be afraid of that because that's something that's really difficult to do, stand in front of a huge crowd and speak with confidence and assurance. So he was a young man doing this. But after that, after getting his anchor, and I think he said he was inspired by some preacher, and he adopted his style, and he was able to pull that off. Later, he became great at that because he studied intentionally to learn how to speak to his people, because his goal was to raise the consciousness of black people in this country and to let them know who they were, to build their pride, to let them know their history, which we have never been taught properly in this country. And one of the downfalls of that has been the cloud over the Marcus Garvey era. This man was a magnificent leader. He was an inspiration to many, many people. So in Harlem, where he built most of his businesses, where he lived for many years, and he worked in the community with our people, J. Edgar Hoover, who is just coming on the scene, decided, now he didn't decide, he was told probably, but not only from our leaders in this country, the president, the presidents and prime ministers of other countries, to get rid of this man because he was having too much of an impact on their pocketbooks. They were investing in Africa. Americans were investing in their many businesses, and black business was being taken away from them because blacks in Harlem began to do more to create businesses and become self-sufficient. Does this sound familiar to you? Interesting. So anyway, J. Edgar Hoover took it on himself to make sure this man came down. And he did that by planting undercover agents in his organization to befriend him, to win his trust, and to betray him. And that they did. Of the thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars that this man managed, they got him on a $25 debt. A $25 debt. And he spent 5 years in jail because of that. And yes, he was betrayed by his own people. Many of them, even the ship's captain that he put in charge of this large, huge, humongous ship, that guy betrayed him because Marcus Garvey depended on him to tell him the correct price of ships, but he padded that price and was paid by the white man to raise the price on him. There were all kinds of undercover deals that our people participated in helping to bring this man down. And that is our shame. But it's also our lesson. So we need to get to the other side of that lesson. That's a very good friend of mine always say, when you get to the other side of your lesson, you become great. And we are still trying to get to the other side of that lesson. There were a couple of comments, and I'll read them in a few minutes. But before that, I want to talk about what we can learn from the Marcus Garvey era. And I call it an era because it was quite a number of years that this man led our community. And we need to learn, number one, to learn as much as we can. I don't put that much value in the education that we've received from white America, because they leave us out of the conversation, they leave us out of the dialogue. Our children do not know our history. We don't learn about revolutionaries in the black community like Marcus Garvey, because he was for his people. He loved his people. And for that, he had to spend 5 years in jail. And after the five years were up, they deported him back to Jamaica. And of course, the publicity preceded him. So when he arrived, he was ostracized, he was shamed, and he was made to feel less than himself. And I think one of the documentaries I saw on YouTube, in fact, it shows where they had children who would just throw rocks at him and, call him names or whatever. He managed to bring himself out of that situation, and he left there, moved to England, where he spent the rest of his life. And in England, he was able to reopen his newspaper. He did not give up, but he's older and suffering from many different things. And they say that he was beginning to decline in his health, but there was an announcement in an American paper, and really in all different parts of the world, saying that Marcus Garvey was dead. And the story is that he heard that, and he was shocked by that, and was very depressed over that. And he died shortly after that story came out. So it's a sad ending for such a magnificent figure, but he did live. He did live for us, and he also tried to build up our self-esteem, and he did that. His only goal was to make us great. So we have to live with a little Marcus Garvey in each of us. We have to go back and get that information. We need to learn that story. We need to teach it to our children, and we need to do what Marcus Garvey's mother did for him. We need to build our children up to let them know they can be great. They are brilliant. You're smart. You can do anything. We need to do that for our black men, and make sure that our black men have the pride and dignity that they deserve when they walk these streets in America. You can't even go out for a walk without getting shot. Come on, folks. We have to do this. We have to take care of all of this, all right? I know this is kind of long, but I did want to read a couple of comments I got from some people on Facebook. They said, we need to get back to our roots, our culture. Then maybe we can grow. That came from Takia Coutinho. And Linda Williams says, years of repression can do that to a group of people. And you're right. Not only years of oppression, years of prejudice, and years of brainwashing. Years of brainwashing, because we've been told that if we integrate, everything's going to be okay. But I don't care what we have done. And for the past 400 plus years we've been in this country, as enslaved people and as Native Americans have been here for centuries. And that was us, the Native Americans. That was us, because there were black people here when Columbus got here. This was not India. It was America. It was it was everything that is indignant of our culture. So we don't want to tell any child, any black child especially, that Christopher Columbus discovered America. No, he didn't discover anything. It was already discovered. We were already here, folks. Okay, now go on. Okay, Dominique Jones says, make the family matter like it once did. And you are correct, Dominique. That's what we have to do. We must make our families, and that means the father, the son, the daughters, and the mothers. All of us have to stick together. Everyone has to work together in order for us to continue to grow and learn. Dennis Ebanks says, we want to be like everybody else except ourselves. We want to be white, Chinese, Indian. We've heard these stories before. You're right, Dennis, because I hear people, I'm part Indian, I'm part this. That's not it. You are an African American. You are a black person in this country. We need to take pride in who and what we are. So I want to thank you for listening in, because I know this is getting a little long. But I want to just remind you to teach our children our true history. People like Marcus Garvey, who was amazing, an amazing presence. And I will do a short video on his life, and I'll post it on this channel, and I'll also put it on our page, The Elder Speaks, on Facebook, so that we can learn who this man was and appreciate his greatness, appreciate the energy that he put in our people. And we must be warriors like Marcus Garvey. We must make each and every one of us a leader, a giant, because that's what we need. We don't need one leader. We don't need one Martin Luther King or one Barack Obama. All of us needs to be Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. We all need to internalize that, and we all need to function together in order to bring us together. Okay? Thank you for listening. I know it's a long one, but hopefully we can discuss it more. And I will look forward to doing that on Facebook. And also, if you want to chat with me, just leave a message at the bottom of this page, and I'll be sure to get it. Or go to my website and leave me a message there. The email will come to me. That's www.hvictoriahargro@atkerson.com. And don't forget to check out my books, folks. Okay, that's what I do. Thank you, and God bless. Love you.